this trip saw us do a 5,000 kilometre loop around New South Wales and up into Queensland and back down the coast. And this video takes us from Longreach in central Queensland to Bowen on the coast. Leaving Longreach, we travelled east back through Barcardine to stop at Jericho before we headed on to Emerald. After a week in Emerald, we headed north to Claremont and then northeast to the little town of Nebo. From there, we joined the Bruce Highway heading north to St. Helens and on to Bowen. Jericho is a small town, basically 100 kilometres from anywhere. And we stopped the night at the showgrounds. Now these showgrounds were great, and everyone we met there was very friendly. It was a really great place for the price, and we even had a great concrete slab. Well done, Jericho. Another day saw us arrive in Emerald to search out the information centre and these great sculptures out the front. There was a park next to it where there were some historical buildings and a lovely path of mosaics showing the development of the area. We didn't expect to see a large Van Gogh painting, however. There was quite a large Botanical Gardens there, and there's some really nice areas. I like this bush chapel. Then we came down to a really nice bottle tree. It also had some really nice walking paths. It also had a beautiful lake. I think it's worth taking notice of this sign, but the only large wildlife we saw there were these sculptured emus. And here they also honoured the famous old Aussie song, "Oh My Emu."
Now I can't fly, but I'm telling you, I can run the pants of a kangaroo.
Now the Federation pillars show each 10 years since Federation. Here's a few of them. We drove out to Maraboon Lake, a few kilometres out of town, and the Fairbairn Dam. Now this dam was commenced in 1968. We were looking at having a paddle and kayaks, but decided the water was a bit cool, so we headed off back up the road. And we soon arrived at the lookout. And then we drove along the dam wall. Next morning we drove the 60 odd kilometres south to the little town of Springsure. We wanted to visit a little museum that was just south of town called the Old Rainworth Fort, and we had a delightfully long chat with a 90-year-old lady who owned and ran it. This is Fairbairn House. It was one of the first properties settled here in 1861, and the house was moved here in 1988. I remember my grandmother using these kerosene irons. Now, the school was built here on the station in 1896 as the government used to fund a one-teacher school for up to 40 students. Mail was delivered on a Monday morning so that the children could take it back home, and mail was picked up on Friday afternoon. The 200-mile mail run took up to 5 days on horseback. There were very strict rules for the teachers in those days, but so much more for the female teachers. Now, the fort was actually built as a stone store in 1862. It was restored in the 1970s and is a Grade A historic building. And a lot of the history is described in these boards. Out the back there's a good workshop. Now, this museum really needs all the help it can get, so please call in there if you're in the area. Now, a few kilometers just to the northwest of Springsure is the Minerva Hills National Park. It has many gorges and some great views. Stopping up here was at the Eclipse Gap Lookout, and this was along a rather rough dirt track. Now, I think the view from here says it all. Our final stop was the Virgin Rock. Now, I hope you can see her here in the rock. Our next move was north to Claremont. Now this was a very pleasant town with a cute little railway station. And next to the railway station are a set of murals depicting life around the area. They're each attached to an old railway wagon. A few kilometres out of town are the remains of the old town known as Copperfield. This was once a thriving town with a mine and a smelter. And today there's only one building that remains. And on the other side of the road, close to the mine site, is the chimney from the smelter. We happened to pass by the cemetery, and even though there were very few headstones, a lot of work had been done by the locals to identify all the graves. And of course, the weather out here has taken its toll on all the headstones. Our next drive was up to Nebo, and there was a very interesting volcano core on the way there called Wufang Peak. We parked at a very basic caravan park, walked around Nebo, and we saw the old hotel. It's been there over 100 years. Now we're heading for the coast in St. Helens. You know you're in mining country when the police push you off the road for a wide load. These are big mine trucks. After another hour or so, we found ourselves in sugarcane country and the town of Marina. We settled into our site as the Helens Gardens Tourist Park. This is a great little park, even if it is close to the highway and railway. The following day we drove from the caravan park out to the beautiful Finch, Hatton Gorge, and then up the escarpment to Eungella. The drive in was quite interesting with a few creek crossings. And we were just able to find a park, and we started the walk into the Cascades. Now this track was very well maintained. And eventually the Cascades came into view. This was a great little walk, really enjoyed it. We drove up the escarpment road, and of course there was roadworks on it. And after we drove through the town, we arrived at Peace's Lookout. Then it was back down the escarpment. And so we headed northward again to the most northern destination on this trip. It's Bowen, and it's the home of the Kensington Pride mango. This rather large one can be found on the way into town. Bowen has very wide streets and some quite classical buildings. Around the town there were many murals, and I've made a separate video on that. Down by the waterfront is a memorial to the Catalina base that was there during World War II. Unfortunately, the hangar was burned down, but the concrete base is still here. And if you take a look on Google Maps, you can see the painted shadow of a couple of aircraft on the concrete. And just across the road where the coal stockpiles used to be, an enterprising lady has a mobile coffee shop on an old horse float. We made good use of that. Just a short walk away is the old jetty. It used to be a busy coal loading facility, but a new facility was built just a few kilometres north. And these days this right arm is used to home some tugs. The old railway supports and tracks are still visible. From the end of this, there's still a good view across to the Marina. We also visited the town museum, as we always do. Now this one was really worth going to. Now we did a short walk along the eastern end of Queen's Bay, starting from where we had morning tea when driving the motor home from Cairns a few years ago, and it went across to Horseshoe Bay, where we could have lunch in the cafe. We walked along the beach, and there was also some new walking paths being put in. When there is a bottle of vinegar every few hundred meters along the beach to help counteract deadly stingers, you know you should take it seriously. Then we walked along past the boat ramp, which is a great place for a paddle. And from there we went down the hill into Horseshoe Bay, and it's a really nice beach. There's also a track up to the lookout, but we were going to do the loop walk and come in from the other way, starting at Rose Bay on the southeast corner, and then take a look at the old radar base and the Rotary Lookout on the way to Horseshoe Bay, then back along the road and a shortcut through the scrub back to the start. Leaving Rose Bay, we headed up to Mother Bedrock, that big rock, and it's got great views from up there. From there it was basically down into Murray's Bay, and from there we headed back up to the radar base. With its 360-degree views, it's easy to see why this spot was chosen. Then we reached the Rotary Lookout with its views over Horseshoe Bay, and then along the road and back to the scrub to the start, the end of our time in Bowen.